Hey, in today's video we're going to be looking at exactly what professional photographers are looking for in a camera. Now before you all go and get your SPSS and Minitab books out, this is slightly statistically based, but predominantly it's quantitative data. I've had information back from about 100 photographers from different genres, and I've asked them a very simple line of questions. 1, what is your profession? And 2, could you list in priority order your first, second and third thing which you look for in a camera? I was very lucky that I got a good number of responses back. It's not enough to actually draw any completely conclusive analysis, but I thought it was interesting because it wasn't the results I was expecting. Now, as you'd imagine, we have a whole host of different types of photographers out there, and I've clumped them into 3 groups. This is where most of you are going to get really angry. Now, I'm trying to make it make sense without it as being the most elaborate dump of data. If you see me looking down here, it's because I've got some paper with some notes on it because I'm never going to remember all of this. But here we go, let me give this a go. So, in group number 1, we have the wedding photographers, the event photographers, the sports photographers, and the gig photographers. And these are all characterised by needing low lightability, fast shooting. It's an event, it's a one-off thing. If you mess it up, you're in real trouble. You're not doing a reshoot of someone's first kiss. Next up, we have the portrait, the editorial, the fashion, that line of photography. And I know there are so many niches within that. I'm very aware of this, but we're going to be here for days otherwise. And I think you should be able to, within this, go, well, yes, that's important to me. And this isn't going, this is what you must buy. These are just some interesting findings I've made. And finally, we have the still life guys. Guys and girls. I say guys as like a non-gender thing, but someone pulled me up in it recently. So, people. Now in the still life set of people, we have landscape. We have people who like to photograph architecture. We have product photography and myself, a food photographer. Now, I've been super fortunate in that within all of these characteristics and traits and different niches, I've had photographers who charge £100, £200 a day, and I've had photographers who charge £50,000 a day get in touch with me. I was actually surprised at some of the people who got in touch with me because, well, 1, I didn't realise they followed me, and 2, I didn't realise they actually listened to anything I said, more so than that, so it was very flattering, so thank you very much. Now, as well as the 3 main traits of a camera that people are looking for, the 3 main specs that people are looking for, there's some interesting observations made, and this is where it stops being a big sort of statistical jump in, it's more of a qualitative look at what people are after. So let's jump right in with the wedding and events people. And the biggest shock that I had was that hardly anybody listed ISO at all on this. I was really surprised by this. However, here's what we did have. Number 1 was autofocus. And it was almost everybody put autofocus first. And I was really surprised because when I shot weddings, which was a while ago, granted, I shot with 5D Mark IIs with one autofocus point that kind of worked. And it was never a concern for me. But nowadays, autofocus is king. The next up, which again I've never had, is dual slots. Dual card slots, everybody had it in their top 3. And it comes in second once I've jumbled all these numbers through my computer. And the third thing, which I didn't expect, and I've had a few explanations to this as well, is good colours. For me, shooting raw in a studio, I obviously get a colour chart out, but when you're shooting a wedding or an event and the light's forever changing, you need something which can do a good auto white balance, something which can really produce good colours consistently. And I also had someone mention that what they're looking for is a selection of lenses that have consistent colour rendition throughout the range. They don't want to be going from their 35 to their 85 and find the colours shift completely, because when they're putting it together in the album later, it looks a nightmare. Now, things that I was expecting to see here that I didn't see much of was build quality, durability, weight. All these things that I would have thought would have been really popular, they weren't a concern for people, and I found that very interesting. So the next group we're going to look at are the portrait people, the editorial, the fashion people. Now, with the more, and this is more looking at it as a qualitative standpoint, the more fashion-related people, there was a bit of resolution coming into this, but it didn't actually make the final jump because there were so many other photographers in there. Lens selection came out number 1. So it turns out that most portrait photographers, and this was especially true for the much higher end ones charging obscene amounts of money, they base their camera body selection on the lenses available, and most of them go for Canon or Phase 1. That could just be look of the draw. I don't have anything against Nikon, or I don't know why I say Nikon when I'm doing videos. I say Nikon in my head, but I feel really self-conscious of it. Nikon or Sony, whatever it may be, but it seems that those camera brands were the most popular. Next up after lens selection is colours, and I think this harks back to the colour rendition of lenses, but also that they can achieve good colours and good skin tones. Now, personally, I don't think that's something I'd look for because I'd probably shoot with a colour chart, But I think maybe people had made these selections when colour science wasn't as good and wasn't as consistent through camera bodies. But now with processors being what they are, I don't think you can buy a camera which produces bad colours. However, I'm not a portrait photographer, However, I'm not a portrait photographer, so I could be completely wrong about this, so don't listen to that. And the final thing, and this really shocked me, the third most ranked item was weight and size. I did not expect people to be concerned about the weight and size of their camera shooting portraits, but it sort of makes sense because at a wedding, we all know we're going to be lugged down with gear, it's going to be horrendous, sweaty, heavy, all the rest of it. But you don't want to be carrying around a 1DX with a 200mm f2 lens to do portraits with because it's just tiresome. So having something like a 5D body, I'm not sure what the Nikon or Nikon equivalent is, D810, D700? I'm not a very techie person, I don't read camera reviews that often. Ever, actually. I don't read camera reviews. I ask somebody in a shop, what do I need to do my job? Which is a bit different video altogether as to why. And actually I think, this is a tangent now, a lot of professional photographers don't know that much about cameras. We go to somebody who does and we go, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm trying to produce, what do I need? And they'll go, well, you need this system or this system, here's the pros and cons, which one do you fancy? And you normally go, that one's cheaper, we'll have that one. Anyway, back to the task. The weight and size seems to be very important, and I thought that would more come into weddings perhaps, but it doesn't. It comes in with the portrait people. And that was across the board, from fashion to family portraits, to editorial work, to commercial portraits. It was all in there. Everyone was wanting weight and size. It wasn't ever a high priority, but it was in the top 3. Okay, so the final group of people are the still life people. People like myself who photograph things that hopefully don't move. Although I have had a crab wander off set before. Anyway, the number one thing on this list was resolution, and that really shocked me. Resolution was key, and I had some really high-end photographers get back to me about this. And they're shooting on 100 and 150 megapixel sensors. And the high resolution is key because of retouching and reproduction. And a lot of still life stuff is going into print. And I think linked to resolution comes sharpness, and that was the next thing on the list. And it was almost everybody at the high end was ranking these two at the top, and lower down colours came up higher. But I think by the time you're getting a 100 to 150 megapixel camera, your colour science is pretty spot on. So having a sharp sensor and having a high resolution sensor is really key. There are other mentions about tonality and gradation, from shadow to highlight and gradation across colours. So I think really it's just about getting the biggest, most high resolution sensor you can lay your hands on. And I certainly find that true for myself as well. Now the third item, and this came second and third in most of people's ranking system, was the ecosystem. And that is the way that the camera can be a modular build. And I think this is because most of us want to be shooting on a medium format system where everything is modular. We can change the viewfinder, the back, the camera. It's all interchangeable. It's a lifetime investment, and it's something you can really, build up over many, many years. You can start off with a Mamiya and an old P45 back, and then you might think, right, well, I need a better back, so we'll get a new back. And then you go, well, I'll upgrade the body to the XF system. It's a slowly catchy monkey kind of system. For myself, I'm still shooting with Canon. I rent my Phase 1 kit. I have a good relationship with a rental company, and we have a nice little way that we work these things out. But the ecosystem is really important for these photographers, and I completely understand that when you're shooting still life. By researching DSLRs, it's just pointless because every time a new one comes out, it'd be best if you have to upgrade the entire camera, whereas with medium format, you can upgrade little bits and pieces at a time, and it does make good sense. Now, I'm just looking down at my notes here. The other thing which a lot of these still life photographers wanted was built-in focus stacking. I know for a fact that the latest Phase 1 does that. I'm not sure about other cameras, but it saves you so much time. I do manual focus stacking with a small geared rig, and it is a nightmare. And you can't move on to the next shot until you've merged that shot, which takes a while because it's 50 megapixel photos with about 70 of them. And it's a nightmare because it's just so time consuming. So I can see why you'd want that latest Phase 1 body. And the other thing was the bit depth, the colour bit depth. And for me, this is vital. Whenever I get a shoot where we're shooting something particularly similar in colour, I guess, like a bowl of oranges, you've got to use a medium format camera to get that higher bit depth of colours. Whenever I'm shooting something where there's real subtle changes in colours, like a bowl of figs, or really anything food related, the colours from a Phase 1 are better. There's more of them. So rather than going, well, we've got an orange here and an orange here, and there's something in between, we don't own that colour, we'll just go here, here, clunk. It gives you more options of different grades of that colour. And for me, that's really important. Although for my bank balance, it's really important that I stay with Canon right now. But there we go, that's that. So I hope this is interesting. I'm not sure what use it is, but I thought it was interesting. I thought I'd get out there and ask people. And what I think is really interesting is that the only people who were interested in live view in terms of mirrorless cameras were the wedding and events people. The portrait people, only 2 I think mentioned mirrorless systems. But in weddings, almost every photographer at some point, normally down at the bottom, was it must be a mirrorless, or as a side note outside of this. Now this is by no means any sort of scientific testing of conclusive answers, but I think sometimes just interesting to see what people in your field are looking for in cameras, because the way that camera companies market, they don't necessarily market things that we want. I remember being told about various, live view functions in a camera, and I'm like, yes, but you removed the PC sync port, and I cannot buy a camera without a PC sync port, because for me, that's what I need. And just I couldn't relate to the online reviews of cameras, because I don't need this. I don't need all these weird specs and bells and whistles that they're going on about. I need a high resolution sensor that's sharp, that has a good ecosystem or good lens selection. That's all I need. Anything else, dual card slots, no interest to me. Now, if you're a wedding photographer, you're probably looking at my kit and going, why on earth would you want a tilt shift lens, a 50 megapixel sensor, and you don't own a memory card? Everything goes straight to computer. That won't work for me. I need fast autofocus. It's a very different world, and all these different genres require very different cameras. And I think part of the joy of photography, sorry, someone's slamming the lift door behind me. Part of the joys of photography is that once you go down your little rabbit hole in your niche, you sort of go, well, the camera I need to buy is only this one here. There is no other camera. When I bought my 5DS systems and the lenses for them, there wasn't really any decision making involved, because in my price range, which is below medium format, I could only buy the 5DS because only Canon had the lenses I wanted. I prefer the Canon tilt shift system to the Nikon one. I find that the 135 and the 90mm L tilt shift lenses are the best tilt shift lenses on the market. So that's why I use this particular brand of camera. And there's no way I could go away from that. I couldn't go to a Sony mirrorless sensor, even if the sensor's better, even if the colours are better, because they don't have the lens choices I want without using adapters. And then at this stage, I'm too far gone. So this is, I think, hopefully of use to you. And it's a bit different to a normal camera review. It's a bit, I did some reviews recently. I realised that what I think is important in a camera, the rest of the internet does not think is important. So I've learnt my lesson there. Don't do camera reviews unless you're going to go, well, I'm going to do them in a review in the way that I make sense for a camera, make it really clear to people, because everyone got very angry. So I'm not going to do that again. If you are enjoying this content, do hit subscribe, do share the videos. I'm still doing a video a day through September. I am actually enjoying it now. It was quite stressful last week, so I was running out of ideas. I had like a bit of brain freeze and just nothing was coming out. But then I had a sleep and I felt much better. So I'll see you all next time, and thanks again to everybody who participated in this. It was really appreciated, and you helped me produce another video. Thank you very much. See you soon.